Okay, thanks for tuning in. Now, for this lesson, we're going to be finding unknown coordinates, right? So, you know how to calculate the distance, you know how to calculate the gradient, you also know how to find the midpoint for a given line, okay? So, but what happens if instead of being given all the coordinates, you are now given the length and you are asked to calculate the missing coordinate, right? Say, for instance, you have a line that looks somewhat like this. You have a coordinate A and a point B. Okay, so let's say maybe here you are given a 1 and a 1, and then for B, you are given maybe 7 and let's say Y, right? You are given all the coordinates for point A, that is the X and the Y, but for B, you are only given X and the Y is missing. Do you see that? In such an instance, maybe they can add extra information and say the gradient for this line, I don't know, maybe it's 2. Then they ask you to calculate what the Y coordinate is. All right, so this is what we are going to explore. So these are some of the ideas we're going to be discussing in this video. Okay, so finding the unknown coordinate, it involves using what, either the gradient, the length, or the midpoint. So you're gonna be given one of these three, and then you're gonna have to use these quantities or these values to calculate the unknown coordinate. So here's an example of a question from a textbook where we are asked to refer to the diagram alongside line AD. We're not gonna solve this. I'm just showing you an example of what to expect maybe in a test or an exam. So line AD is defined by the equation. This line, we are told it's defined by this equation. Points B and C, you see where I'm going with this. You have this line BC with an unknown coordinate of P, that is the Y for B, are placed in such a way that BC is parallel to AD. Point A lies on the x-axis, so on and so forth. Then for the first question, they ask you to calculate what? The value for P. How do we calculate this? So in order to find P, it's either you're gonna need the distance for line BC, or the gradient, or you can use the midpoint. But in this case, I think it's obvious. Okay, well, not so obvious, but the value that's gonna work, or that's gonna work in helping us find P, it's the gradient, right? Okay, I don't wanna say too much about this question, but I just wanna plant the idea as to what to expect. Okay, but let me show you. We're gonna come back to this. But for now, let's just talk about this in detail. So unknown coordinates can be calculated using the following. You can either use the gradient value and use this formula to calculate the unknown coordinate, or you can use the distance formula when given the distance, or you can use the midpoint formula when given the midpoint for that particular line. So let's take some examples just to help us understand the process behind getting unknown coordinates. So I have this line AB, where the unknown in this instance, it's the coordinate what? P. The Y coordinate for A. So what we're gonna do, say maybe in this example, they've given us the gradient for this line. So they want us to find the unknown coordinate P when the gradient of the line AB is given as 1. Okay, is given as 1. So they want us to find P. How do we go about finding the unknown in this case? All right, so we're going to start off by saying, all right, since I'm given the gradient, I'm going to use the gradient formula along this line AP. So gradient AB is equal to YA minus YB over XA minus XB. Okay, XB. So what is the gradient AB? Is given as 1. What is YA? YA I don't know, which is that P we are trying to find. Minus YB. What is YB? It's negative 5. That's negative 5. In case you don't see this, it's a negative 5. So YB is minus 5. Everything divided by what is XA? XA is 6 minus what is XB? It's negative 7. So I'm going to divide the 1 by 1. I want to create a fraction on the left hand side so that I can do what? Do a cross multiplication and be able to calculate what? P. But first, let's solve the brackets. So it's going to be a 1 over 1 equal to a P plus a 5 over 6 minus negative 7. So it's going to be 13. Yeah, it's going to be 13. 13 because it's a negative times a negative, it's a positive. So it's going to be a 6 plus 7. Take away 6 from the 7. 6 plus 6, that's 12. Plus 1 from the 7. Yeah, it's 13. Then let's cross multiply. 1 times 13, it's 1 3. 1 times P, 1 times P plus 5, it's going to be a P plus 5. Then we transpose the 5. It's going to be a 13 minus 5 equal to P. So 13 minus 5, the answer should be 8. Yes, it should be 8. P is equal to 8. Okay, P is equal to 8. All right. So just by looking at the coordinate, the line AB, and studying the actual coordinate A, you can see that from the sketch, actually, the y coordinate should be 8. 6, 7, then 8. This is 5, then 6, 7, 8. So the y coordinate for A should be 8, right? So we are not trying to find the coordinate P from the sketch, but we want to find it through calculations. Okay, so this is how you can use a gradient to find an unknown coordinate in a given straight line. Okay, so let's take another example. So for this example, we are now given the midpoint. Okay, they want us to find the unknown coordinate P when the midpoint of line AB is given as m minus 1 over 2, and then the y coordinate is 3 over 2. Okay, so this is the midpoint. This is our midpoint. But we have a missing y coordinate A. Now we have to calculate. See what I did? I just changed the question so that we can calculate the unknown coordinate using a midpoint, but I kept the straight line. So we already know what P is. So we just want to find the coordinate P, but instead of using the gradient, this time we are using a midpoint. Let's go. Okay, so the midpoint formula says M, midpoint, it's the x coordinate and the y coordinate is equal to M, the midpoint, it's x. Okay, so since the midpoint is between points A and B, instead of putting 2 and 1, I'm just going to say XA plus XB over 2, and then YA plus YB over 2, close bracket. Okay, so here I have the midpoint as what? As a negative 1 over 2, and the y as 3 over 2 equal to, and then here I have M, and then what is XA? XA is 6 plus what is XB? That's negative 7 over 2, and then y is what? It's the P. YA, it's the P, plus what is YB? It's negative 5. Don't forget, if you don't see this clearly, The y coordinate for b, it's minus 5. So y coordinate for b, it's negative 5 divided by 2, close the bracket. So here I have a minus a half and a 3 over 2 equal to m over, so when we calculate this, the 6 plus negative 7 over 2, we should get a negative 1 over 2. Negative 1 over 2. Then for p, it's basically a p minus 5 over 2. Do you see what's happening now? I hope you do. I hope you do. So the x coordinate from the midpoint is the same as the x coordinate we calculated on the right hand side. So it's basically the same coordinate, but on the left hand side we are given the midpoint, so I just substitute it as it is. On the right hand side I have to calculate it, right? Why am I doing this? I want to show you that actually the coordinates should be the same, meaning that this x coordinate should be the same as this x coordinate, and this y coordinate should be the same as this y coordinate. So since we are interested in the value for p, we're just going to take these y coordinates and equate them so that we can find p, which, by the way, they should be equal, right? They should be equal. So 3 over 2 is equal to a p minus 5 over 2. Cross multiply. 2 times 3, 6. 2 times p minus 5, it's 2p minus 5, right? So it's 6 equal to 2p minus 10. Transpose the 10. That's 6 plus 10 equal to 2p. That's 16 equal to 2p. Divide both sides by 2. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. That gives us a p of 8. Again, we just found the coordinate for p as well. Okay, we just found the coordinate for p. So with the midpoint, you need the coordinates for the midpoint. So you just write them on the left hand side like this, and then on the right hand side you're gonna use the formulas. But if ever the unknown was p as the x coordinate, right, as the x coordinate, it means that this was not going to give us a value, but however we're going to have to equate the x coordinates and calculate the p, because the unknown would have been part of the fraction for the x coordinate. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. I hope you are getting this. If you have any questions, we can discuss this over the comment section of this video. Okay, now we are now given the length. For this question or this exercise, we are given the length. We are told that length AB, it's 13 square root 2. Find the unknown coordinate P when the length of AB is now given as AB equal to 13 square root 2. So for this type of problem, we're gonna have to use the distance formula equation. So AB is gonna be equal to the square root of XA minus XB square plus YA minus YB square this. And then, since we want the coordinate for P and we are given the distance AB, the distance AB is given as the square root of 13 square root 2 equal to, then we're just going to substitute the coordinates here. So that's the square root of, what is XA? XA, that's 6, minus what is XB? It's negative 7. Close bracket, then you square this. YA, that's P, it's the unknown, minus YB, that's negative 5. Again, if you don't see this, I'm just reminding you again for the third time. If you don't see this, it's a negative 5. Okay? All right. So now my 13 looks like a B. Jesus, help us. Okay. All right. Okay. 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 So perhaps what I could do is start off by yeah, you know what? Let's just simplify the brackets underneath the square root before we do anything drastic with this calculation. Okay, so I'm keeping the square root, but however, I'm solving for the values underneath the square root. So first off, I have 6 minus negative 7 squared. I'm gonna get a syntax error. Let me close this bracket. I'm getting a 169 plus, let's solve what's inside the big bracket. So it's gonna be a p plus 5 squared. Let's not foil it. Let's not foil it. Let's not foil it. So after simplifying this, I am gonna square on both sides of the equation. Why? I wanna remove the square roots that are present in this equation. So open bracket 13 square root 2, close the bracket, raise it to a 2. I'm getting a 338. 338 is equal to, so this gets cancelled by that. I now have a 169 plus a p plus 5 squared. Do you still want to foil this? It's just a question. Just think about it. Do you want to foil this out? What do I mean by foiling this one out? Do you want to create two brackets and multiply them? You can, however you can, but here's a simplified way of approaching this one. Do not complicate things, man. Hey, life is already hard, man. Life is hard already. Don't complicate things. Now we're gonna subtract this. 338 minus 169. I'm getting a 169. 169 equal to p plus 5 raised to exponent 2. Now I would have to get the square root of this. Why am I taking the square root on both sides? It's because I want to remove the square. I don't want to do what? I don't want to foil this out. So I take what? The square root, right? So this cancels out that. What is the square root of 169? Square root of 169 is equal to 13. It's a perfect square. It's a plus minus, by the way, right? Taking the square root of a number, we should leave it leaves a square root over a number, leaves a plus or a minus. I'm now left with a p plus 5. So p is now going to be equal to, we take this 5 and transpose it over to the left hand side. So this is a plus minus 13 minus 5. So I have two p values. It's plus 13 minus 5, which gives me a 13 minus 5, it's 8. Remember this 8 from the first two examples. Yes, it's coming back again. P is equal to 13, minus 13 minus what? Minus 5. So p is equal to, so for this case I have two, how many p values? I have 2. So here it's a minus 13. I'm getting a minus 18 as my p value. So this p value, it's not relevant. We are going with this one, right? Why? How do I know? I'm presented with two values of p. How do I know which one is the correct one? Looking at the coordinate or the point A, I can see that it's located in the first quadrant, and both the x and the y should be positive. So hence we should be going with the p as being equal to 8. Okay, so this is how you can calculate unknown coordinates using the length, the distance, or the gradient. Okay, of course it all depends on what you are given for that question. Now coming back to this question we discussed earlier on, finding the value of P. So my argument was, in order to solve this this problem, this P value, you would have to use the gradient, right? Here we are given two parallel lines. AD, we are told that AD is parallel to BC. What do we know about parallel lines? Remember, I cannot calculate the gradient between B and C directly. Why? I don't have the coordinate for P. I also cannot calculate the midpoint as well as the distance. I don't have the coordinate for P. I don't have all the information to calculate the length, the gradient, or the midpoint. However, I would have to look for a way to calculate one of these quantities so that I can calculate P. I am saying the gradient BC is equal to gradient AD. How do I know this? It's because of we know this from the property of parallel lines. Parallel lines will have equal gradients. So this line AD, we are given an equation for. Yes? We are told that the equation is y equal to minus 2x minus 3. And an equation for a straight line is always of this form. The m represents what? The gradient. That is the value next to the x value, right? So the negative 2, it's saying this is the gradient for the line AD. Since the line AD is parallel to BC, that makes BC to have a gradient of minus 2. Bingo. Ding. Yes, yes, and yes. You now have the gradient for this line. You can use the gradient formula to calculate what? P. Okay? I presented the problem. Now I'm providing a solution. Okay? So we're not going to calculate this. I was just sharing an idea. So it could be an activity that you can do perhaps after watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got some value out of this video. If you did, leave a like. You have a question, let's talk in the comment section, guys. All right, for now, signing out. Peace.